anti-American sentiment. Moreover, our fraud detection and national security team completed over 21,000 investigations, identifying fraud in approximately 65% of those cases. In Operation Twin Shield in Minneapolis-St. Paul back in the fall, we uncovered marriage fraud, visa misuse, and student visa abuses, leading to denials of immigration benefits, arrests, and removal proceedings. This work led to Operation PSTARS, where we continue re-examining thousands of refugee cases in Minnesota, conducting thorough background checks and in-person reviews. We've also strengthened our vetting policies. If someone falsely claims U.S. citizenship to get a public benefit or try to vote, we hold them accountable through denial of citizenship or loss of immigration status. We've tightened screening to determine whether claimed marriages and family relationships are legitimate. And we've changed regulations to employment authorization is no longer automatically extended. Now we require more frequent renewals so that we can vet aliens more frequently and ensure that they deserve to remain in the country. Additionally, we've taken action to end the exploitation of immigration programs. Mass humanitarian parole programs were being abused by the prior administration. So we've restored them to Congress's original intent, allowing those benefits on a case-by-case basis. Secretary Noem also ended decades of temporary protected status for several countries, returning the program to what Congress intended: temporary protection, not permanent status in the United States. Moreover, this administration is doing more to ensure the integrity of our elections. We enhanced the SAVE program so states can verify citizenship of those on their voter rolls more effectively. Since January 2025, we've processed over 58 million queries, and 27 states are participating. Additionally, federal agencies ran nearly 206 million SAVE queries last year to identify fraud and preserve public assistance benefits for lawful U.S. residents and citizens. We're also putting American taxpayers and communities and workers first. We affirmed that aliens should be self-reliant, not dependent on public assistance, and that their sponsors are liable for the cost of public benefits that they access. The Department of Homeland Security is also working to rescind the 2022 public charge rule, restoring our discretion to determine if an alien will rely on government assistance. We've proposed protecting American jobs by prioritizing H-1B visas for higher skilled, higher paid workers so that companies can't use those visas merely as a way to get cheaper non-citizen labor. We've also streamlined agricultural visa processing to better support American farmers. A major milestone was implementing the One Big Beautiful Bill, which added new fees for certain immigration processes. USCIS collects those fees, but only retains a small amount of the money, while the rest goes to other agencies and deficit reduction. Finally, protecting the American people is at the heart of everything we do. After the attack on 2 brave service members of the National Guard last November, Secretary Noem directed us to review immigration benefits for aliens from high-risk countries. In closing, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is restoring integrity, accountability, and security to America's legal immigration system. These accomplishments reflect the dedication of our workforce and the transformative leadership of President Trump and Secretary Noem, both of whom have allowed USCIS to do the job it was created by Congress to do. We stand ready to continue working with Congress to protect the homeland and uphold the rule of law. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Director Udlow. I now recognize Acting Director Lyons for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Good morning. Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to discuss the critical work U.S. Immigration and Customs is doing every day to carry out President Trump's agenda to keep America safe, restore order to our communities, and return the rule of law to this country. Under the leadership of President Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the men and women of ICE have been empowered to do exactly what they're trained to do: arrest and remove illegal aliens and criminals from our communities. We are enhancing public safety, securing our national security, and finally restoring integrity to the immigration system that had been allowed to collapse. We have supercharged our partnerships with state and local law enforcement, empowering officers around the country through the 287G program to help ICE identify and remove criminal aliens. Those partnerships have increased more than 900% since President Trump took office, and our communities are safer for it. I am also proud of our agency's unprecedented hiring campaign that led to hiring of more than 12,000 officers and special agents in less than a year, and more than 222,000 individuals submitted applications. This expansion of a well-trained and well-vetted workforce will help further ICE's abilities to execute President's and Secretary's bold agenda. Before discussing our broader operations, I must address the situation in Minnesota and the dangers that ICE agents and officers face nationwide. While the investigations remain ongoing, I'm encouraged that some Minnesota officials are finally signaling the willingness to cooperate with ICE. But let me be clear, promises are not enough. We need action. In the wake of the unprecedented border crisis of the previous administration, ICE has stepped into the breach to enforce the law. This commitment has a cost. We are facing the deadliest operating environment in our agency's history. In fiscal year 2025, death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%. One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials characterizing our officers as Gestapo or secret police. The families of ICE personnel have been made to feel unsafe in their homes. I know this firsthand because my own family was targeted. But let me send a message to anyone who thinks they can intimidate us. You will fail. Despite these perils, our officers continue to execute their mission with unwavering resolve, and we are only getting started. ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable. Since the beginning of the second Trump administration, we have achieved historic results. From January 20th, 2025 through January 20th, 2026, ICE has conducted nearly 379,000 arrests. Among those arrests were more than 7,000 suspected gang members and over 1,400 known as suspected terrorists. The President tasked us with mass deportation, and we are fulfilling that mandate. Thanks to the resources provided by this Congress, we are ramping up detention capabilities and removal flights daily. In the last year alone, we conducted over 475,000 removals. It's a brutal reality that criminal immigration today is organized by sophisticated, ruthless, transnational criminal organizations. These include cartels and transnational gangs President Trump has rightly designated as foreign terrorist organizations. The only way to defeat them is to destroy their revenue. Within Homeland Security investigations, our special agents are delivering critical outcomes in the fight against transnational crime. We are seizing fentanyl before it kills our children and dismantling the networks that poison our communities. In FY25 alone, we seized more than 2.5 million pounds of narcotics, a 50% increase from the previous year and a critical blow to transnational organization groups everywhere. HSI criminal arrests are at the highest point in history. However, our approach is just not about enforcement. It is about restoring order and dignity to the human beings sold alive by smugglers and exploited by these TCOs. In August 2024, the DHS Office of Inspector General released a report that concluded that more than 291,000 unaccompanied alien children out of nearly 450,000 transferred from DHS to HHS custody were simply lost by the system. We are talking about children exploited in factories, abused in sexual trades, and living as indentured servants on American soil. HSI is leading the charge to find them. We have conducted more than 71,000 field engagements to locate children, verify sponsor legitimacy, and uncover criminal activity related to exploitation. Since February 2025, ICE has arrested more than 500 criminal sponsors of these offenses, including sexual exploitation and forced labor, dismantled more than 2,400 human smuggling operations, and along with our federal partners, located more than 145,000 children. To further ensure TCOs can never threaten our nation again, President Trump dedicated the establishment of the Homeland Security Task Force. The Homeland Security Task Forces represent the most aggressive and coordinated attack on TCOs in history. Through Cross-Border Financial Crime Center, we have developed and implemented a strategy to combat rampant fraud, including government programs in Minnesota and across the country. Using this strategy, HSI has opened numerous criminal investigations into the complex fraud systems that have resulted in the thefts of billions. Much of the fight ICE faces continue to be fueled by so-called sanctuary cities. These jurisdictions provided a shield for criminal aliens when a local jail refuses to honor ICE detainer and releases that predator back into the community. ICE exists to enforce America's longstanding immigration and custom laws. These laws are grounded in common sense, national sovereignty, and simple morality. Our officers and agents enforce these without hesitation, without apology. I ask that all the members of the committee treat them with profound respect that they have earned. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Director Lyons. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. As we have when Secretary Noem was here, we're going to limit it to the 5-minute rule. I'm going to be strict on that for both sides. So do not be surprised if you go over, I gavel you down. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. Acting Director Lyons, I understand that you cannot discuss the details of the 2 recent shootings in Minnesota because they are subject of several investigations, including by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Once concluded, will you commit to providing the reports and findings of each investigation to this committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're fully committed to give you the full and unabridged investigation and the outcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott, can the committee have the same commitment from you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you both. Commissioner Scott and Acting Director Lyons, following this hearing in writing, I'd like to know what is the standard operating procedure for each of your agencies for an investigation when deadly force is used. Currently, Acting Director Lyons, are those procedures being followed for the 2 uses of deadly force in Minneapolis this past January?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Were those, and Commissioner Scott?
Yes, sir, they are.
Were the standard procedures followed from the beginning? Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir, they were.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, for CBP, they were as well.
Thank you very much. We're obviously concerned about officer safety and have seen and heard about increasing threats and assaults against law enforcement. Director Lyons, are your officers trained regarding the difference between a protected protest and what is unlawfully impeding law enforcement?
Yes, sir. Deportation officers and special agents are taught at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. They are taught in defensive tactics, personal safety, but as well as laws to include First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, 10th, 14th Amendment. The officers are trained before they go out into the field, and then while they're in the field. They are specialized training in disturbance control and other special tactics.
Commissioner Scott, are your officers similarly trained?
Yes, they are. At FLETC, ongoing training in the field, and then anytime we're deploying them to the interior, they get updated law refresher training to include First Amendment and Fourth Amendment.
So I want to focus on the training here because with the historic investment in both ICE and CBP, there was a surge in hiring. I need to know, for these new hires, is the training different than what other agents and officers received before the hiring surge? Mr. Lyons, I'll let you start there.
No, sir, it's not. The training was never, the meat of the training was never removed. The timeline was. We took training from 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, to 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. In addition to that, training is different in the fact that before officers even go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, there's pre-employment training, which we never had before. And on top of that, we've adapted our on-the-job training program, which is much like a city or state field training officer program that once they are removed from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, have graduated, before they return to their field offices, they're assigned a field training officer, and that's continued on after that.
So let me get this go. For ICE officers, the curriculum has stayed the same, but it's now a quicker training. The timeline has moved up?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, but the curriculum is the same.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner Scott, can you talk about if there's been a change in training since the hiring surge?
There's been no change in the training within Customs and Border Protection. Border Patrol agents go through a 117-day academy. The CBP officers go through a 103-day academy. That's actually training days. There's been no changes to that. So the only change that has been made is in our quarterly training. We've added scenarios based on what we most likely think they will encounter in the field. So we've actually added some of the protest type encounters as well. So
there's been no change in the timeline either. Similar, ICE did that. You did not?
No, we did not.
Okay. And while this is nothing, because this is my last question, I'm sure. While understanding they are not suitable for every occasion, there's been a lot of talk about the use of deadly force. Are agents and officers equipped with and trained in the use of tasers or other less lethal alternatives to avoid the use of deadly force? And Mr. Director Lyons, I'll start with you, and then Mr. Scott, you can finish.
Yes, sir. Every deportation officer, special agent are trained in secondary weapons, which include the taser, OC spray, and baton.
They're
And
trained
those are made available.
and they're equipped.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scott?
So a similar answer that all of our agents have to carry a secondary weapon. They get trained at the academy, and then they go through quarterly refresher training every 3 months.
Okay, I appreciate it. I will have, I'm sure, for some follow-up questions today, and I will submit those to you in writing. But with that, I yield back, and I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lyons, how many ICE agents have cameras as of today?
Sir, as of today, more than 3,000 ICE officers have cameras that are active in the field, with another 6,000 being deployed, sir.
So how many in the field? How many ICE agents are in the field as of today?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Agents in the field today?
You said agents in the field. I'm just trying to get the number of ICE agents who have cameras on their body as of today.
Approximately 3,000, sir.
3,000 out of how many?
Out of approximately 13,000, sir, that are in the field.
So you have 3,000 out of 13,000 who have cameras.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scott?
I don't have the actual number in front of me right now. It's about 10,000. We're building that program out as we speak.
10,000 out of how many?
Out of about 67,000. But the catch there is the ports of entry, we have significant video.
Nope. I don't want to go to ports of entry. I just want to know how many cameras right now do you have on your agents?
When you say agents, Border Patrol agents, there's about 10,000.
10,000
That's
out. 10,000 out of how many?
Out of 20,000 Border Patrol agents.
So half of them.
Approximately, yes.
So I'll give you a chance to look at that since you said approximately and get back to the committee on what's the accurate number. Not how many you're purchasing, how many as of this day.
Understood, and I will get you that number.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons, what's the regular timetable of training an ICE agent?
Sorry about that, sir. Right now, the training is approximately 47 days at the Federal Law Enforcement Academy. Overall training is about 3 months, sir.
So you went from 3 months to 47 days.
No, sir, the whole total training to include the pre-employment training and then the OJT program is 3 months. And 47 days in the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy.
So they go to Flexi for 47 days or for 3 months?
No, sir, you asked for the total training time. The total training time now is a combined 3 months, sir, with 47 days at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy.
So you didn't reduce the timeline for any of the ICE agents to come on board?
We've reduced the timeline for the previous certified federal law enforcement officers or special agents, where we went to the ones who are already trained in firearms and defensive tactics and criminal procedure. We adapted to a shorter program so they would just have the extensive Immigration Nationality Act training, immigration law, and ICE-specific training.
So if you hired somebody for ICE today, how much training would they receive before they become a full-time agent?
So for a person off the street who has never been a law enforcement officer, they're looking at approximately 3 months of training, sir.
And the 47 days is for who?
That is for everyone that hasn't, who's never worked for ICE, sir. So you could have someone that's a Capitol Police officer. They would not have to go through extended training for when it comes to defensive tactics, firearms, et cetera. They would have to go through the rigorous immigration training, which unfortunately immigration law is just as confusing and long as tax code, which we have to ensure that we devote that extensive time to.
Thank you so much. But
Yes, sir.
would you provide the committee with the timeline?
Yes, sir. We will provide you.
Some of us understand it's 47 days.
Yes, sir. We will
But
provide
you're
you
telling us it's 3 months.
from the beginning, sir, when they go ahead and come on pre-employment training to the
Thank you.
OJT program afterwards. But we will provide the committee with the full for
Okay.
each breakdown.
For Mr. Lyons and Mr. Scott, over the past several weeks, the President has made a series of comments regarding the midterm election. The President has urged my Republican colleagues in Congress to nationalize elections. Now, are you involved in any planning on guarding precincts in this country as of today? Mr. Scott.
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons.
No, sir.
So there's no information, you've not been asked to start deploying people for areas anywhere?
No, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Lyons, I'll get it in writing, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to follow your directions on this.
Gentleman yields back. Thank you, Ranking Member. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. McCall, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A decade ago when I chaired this committee, Mr. Thompson and I passed a bill to authorize ICE into law. It was a bipartisan effort. It passed the House overwhelmingly, both Republican and Democrat. A decade later, here we are. The Dems have called to abolish ICE. Now they're trying to shut it down. So what has happened in that 10 years? Let's go back to the last 4 to 5 years. What happened in this country and at the border? As someone who lives in a border state of Texas, we saw the most dangerous, wide open border that I've seen in my 22 years in Congress. 10 to 12 million people, and that's what we know about. I think it's far greater, came into this country. Many of them dangerous, violent criminals, some known or suspected terrorists, which I find extremely dangerous. That's why I served as an impeachment manager for Mayorkas, because he violated federal law. The federal statute says, as a former federal prosecutor, I know this, shall detain aggravated felons. What did Mayorkas do? He told his agents, that's discretionary. You can release them. As a result, we had tens of thousands of aggravated felons left on the streets of America to roam freely, not to mention the human and sex trafficking of children, Mr. Lyons, as you pointed out. So what is the administration trying to do? They're trying to remove a public safety threat from the United States of America. That is their job. Restoring public safety should be the #1 priority. And one of the problems here, as I examine it, is that Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, is a sanctuary city. What does that mean? That means that it's a magnet for illegal. They're protected under the current situation because state and locals will not cooperate with federal law enforcement. In fact, Mr. Lyons, is it not true that they were not honoring ICE detainers that were put on dangerous felons in prison so that you could remove them from the United States?
That is correct, sir. The detainees were not honored at the local level in Minneapolis.
This is the #1 violation. In addition, the rhetoric on the left led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, an increase of over 8,000 of death threats to them. All this created a perfect storm for our officers being thrown into this situation. And then Agent Bovino came into the picture, and I would argue, in fairness, that he escalated the situation by the way that was handled. Your officers are not trained to effectuate crowd control. They are trained to move in surgically, go in and remove these dangerous, violent criminals from the United States of America. I've called for de-escalation after the 2 deaths, the 2 shootings that took place. I believe that these roving patrols should be done at the border rather than in the major cities of the United States. So when the president decided to remove Agent Bovino and put in Tom Homan, who I've known for years, a consummate professional, law enforcement professional, I commended the president. And what has been done since Mr. Homan came into the job? We now have targeted law enforcement operations. He is returning to the original mission of ICE. He is working with state and locals to do the crowd control. He is getting them to honor the ICE detainers. He is also getting the body cameras put on them. And the roving patrols, in his words to me, should be done at the border, not in major cities. My question to you, Mr. Lyons, is Mr. Homan now, are his operations in Minneapolis now bringing the situation under control?
So we've seen a de-escalation in the fact that the protests, while they still go on, have subsided, and ICE has been allowed to do their targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation. Just the other night, local authorities arrested 54 protesters at the local level where ICE officers did not have to be engaged in that.
My final question to you, do you believe the model that Mr. Homan is now setting in Minneapolis should be a model for the nation?
Gentleman's time has
If
expired.
I could allow the witness to answer.
I understand that, but I'm holding
I'd
it
like
to
on the
5 minutes.
record an answer, Mr. Chairman. Do you agree that Mr. Homan's model is one for the nation?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yes or no?
I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for 5 minutes.
A couple nights ago, I met with a woman who works as a cashier at a grocery store, and I told her I was coming to see you, Mr. Lyons, and she said, will you ask him, and she didn't want to give her name. She was terrified to give her name. But she said, when I get off my shift around midnight and I walk through the parking lot to my car, she said, if somebody rolls up in an unidentified van and gets out wearing all black and their face is covered and they don't have any identification and they ask me to get into the van, how do I know who they are? How does she know, Mr. Lyons? How does she know if they're an ICE agent or bad guys?
Sir, ICE agents have identifiable placards on their uniforms as well as their badges representative, but you won't see ICE agents rolling through the parking lots and just snatching someone up. ICE does intelligence-driven, targeted enforcement operations.
Well, Mr. Homan and others have said that they target individuals based on the color of their skin and the accents that they speak, and that's why people are running through the fields and factories where they work. Director Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also...
It's the square root of 0, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch the video, I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to removing individuals from the United States because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement was, and again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies, but I did say at the end of it, but we deal with human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of
the key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street?
None.
How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data. I'll get that back to you.
Is it more than 1?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if at least, God, I hope at least 1 person has been fired for their conduct since these operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say 1 person's been fired?
Sir, I'm not going to talk about personnel actions, but we will get back to you.
But 2 people have been killed so far, is that right? A nurse named Pretty and a mom named Good. 2 people have been killed so far.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family of Renee Good for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Is she a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on the investigation. And the president and Secretary Noem are elected officials. That's their right to their comments. But as career law enforcement, we won't speak to any.
Do you agree with their comments?
Sir, I'm not going to go ahead and talk about any ongoing investigation.
Will you apologize to the family of Alex Pretty for also being called a domestic terrorist?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speak to any ongoing investigation.
Mr. Lyons, your staying to lead ICE is a decision.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Your staying on to lead ICE is a decision, and I've read your background. You have a decorated career. You've served in the military. You are what I would call otherwise employable. I think most people would agree this is not the only job that you can get. But since you've been on this job, women have been dragged by their hair through our streets. A 6-year-old child battling stage 4 cancer has been deported, and it turns out he was a U.S. citizen. People are running through the fields where they work. People who've gone to the streets as allies have been shot and publicly executed. It's a decision to stay on at this point. And considering your honorable service in the past and the dishonorable acts that those who have worked for you have conducted, and the disgraceful statements that the leadership above you have said, you now have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time has expired.
You never should have gone into
Gentleman's time
custody.
has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we stand on the verge of a second Democrat shutdown of the United States Department of Homeland Security just within the last 90 days. The Department of Homeland Security employs 260,000 men and women across 22 different agencies. Those agencies include 63,000 men and women who work for CBP, 60,000 who work for TSA, 22,000 for FEMA, 18,000 who works for USCIS, almost 50,000 civilian and military employees with the United States Coast Guard, 7,800 Secret Service employees, 2,500 CISA employees, and over 8,000 agents and analysts with the Department of Homeland Security investigation who perform a crucial function to protect and serve this country. This second government shutdown, led by my friends on the Democrat side of the aisle, will leave our country less safe. Don't just take my word for it. Let's look at the words of the Biden administration. President Biden and Kamala Harris, Department of Homeland Security, in September of 2023, as the nation faced a potential government shutdown, they issued a fact sheet. That fact sheet is entitled "The Impact of Government Shutdown on the DHS Workforce." This fact sheet says this. It says DHS workforce is comprised of extraordinary public servants who safeguard this nation. It goes on to say any lapse in federal funding would disrupt this vital work, leaving Americans less safe as a result. Those working without pay include law enforcement, conducting such acts as seizing illegal narcotics like fentanyl, combating child exploitation and child predators, identifying and arresting human trafficking, responding to natural disasters, preventing cyber attacks, and protecting U.S. government leaders. And so I ask you, gentlemen, as we are once again on the verge of a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, if the Democrats take us to the edge, if they refuse to sign a CR, if once again the men and women who serve under your leadership, if they are once again not paid, I ask you, how will that impact our nation? Will America be more safe, or will America be less safe if we are once again led into a government shutdown by the Democrat Party? Mr. Scott.
I believe consistency and seeing support from the leadership of on both sides of this building and the president is very important to border security. I think the rhetoric and the back and forth, the politicizing of law enforcement in general detracts from the general morale of our personnel.
Is it not important that we pay the men and women who serve under your command?
It's critically important.
And in a government shutdown, the bills don't stop, do they not? The bills continue to accrue.
Correct.
And the deployment of technology ceases in many cases, and America becomes less safe. Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree America becomes less safe.
Mr. Edlow, what about you?
Well, Congressman, as I'm sure you're aware, USCIS is a little different in that we are fee-funded. So during a shutdown, the men and women working for USCIS will continue to be paid. However, in terms of our screening and vetting enterprises, as well as everything else we do, we have formed very, very strong working relationships with the other components, and that's critical for us to be able to do our work. While we may be there able to continue without our partners being paid and with them being furloughed, it's going to make America significantly less safe.
And Mr. Lyons.
Yes, sir. It will have a great impact, especially on the Homeland Security task forces and the men and women that are focused on the transnational crime and foreign terrorist organization.
Mr. Lyons, very quickly, we've had many members of this committee who have made allegations. The Democrats have once again taken the mantle of the party to defund the police and abolish ICE. Do you wish to take my last few seconds to speak about the consequences that has on the men and women that you serve?
The men and women of ICE are sworn law enforcement officers who are dedicated to do their mission to protect the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize a gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome our witnesses today. Gentlemen, I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about my district, Southern California, Disneyland. Southern California is the center of manufacturing for the United States. California, biggest ag state in the Union. California, also, big donor, taxpayer dollars to the United States. President Trump got elected on the promise to deport the worst of the worst. Your numbers, Mr. Lyons, less than 14% of those arrested by ICE first year, 2025, had charges or convictions of violence. 70% of those deported had not even a traffic ticket. Mr. Lyons, I think we're all patriots, but I'm trying to figure out how, this is a question to you, sir, how deporting a nanny makes our nation safer, stronger, how trying to deport the father of 3 Marines make this country stronger, how deporting the parents of a number of Marines at Camp Pendleton makes this nation stronger.
Sir, thank you for your welcome, first off. Just to address your, the numbers with the 14%, sir, that's 14% that are listed as violent criminal felonies. However, what's left out of that is the fact that what's left off that list.
Those 70% that don't have a traffic ticket
Sir,
and deported, how has that made our nation stronger?
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, more than 60% of every individual that is in ICE custody has a pending or a conviction on a criminal charge. Not to count.
Sir, let me move ahead. I only have 3 minutes, and we'll talk later.
Sir.
Let's talk about American citizens. Again, back home. People, young people asking me, what do I have to carry with me so I won't be deported? Is, Mr. Lyons, carrying a passport, is that enough so they won't be detained or deported in my district?
Sir, an American citizen shouldn't carry or shouldn't feel the need to carry.
Let me tell you what some of your ICE agents have done. They pulled over a gentleman in a pickup truck, showed his passport, they threw it to the side, detained him. What do we have to do to show that we're American citizens?
Sir, no American citizen falls under Title VIII. No American citizen will be arrested for being an American citizen.
But you just said to my colleague that nobody has been fired because of violations of the law for disciplinary actions, yet this is happening in my district. Mr. Lyons, we're a very boring district. We work hard, mind our own business. ICE in our streets now. People are terrorized. American citizens. Number of cases of Americans being detained, being taken in, some being held for 5 days. Sir, what do we do with those people in that situation? What do we tell them?
Sir, I don't know of any particular case that you're speaking of, American citizen being...
I'm more than happy to provide you a list, sir.
100%, sir.
So let me ask you, sir, are you surveilling U.S. citizens today?
No, sir.
Those people protesting, practicing the First Amendment right, photos of them, data taken, they're not being placed in any kind of a database?
There is no database for protesters, sir.
One of your officers in Maine said to one of the individuals protesting, we're going to put your face in a little database. What does that mean? Do you have a little database
No, sir.
of Americans?
No, sir, we don't.
Then what do you think your ICE agent was doing to this individual when he said those statements?
I can't speak for that individual, sir, but I can assure you there is no database that's tracking United States citizens.
Sir, California, we're a sanctuary state. Does that cause you a problem picking up individuals?
Yes, sir.
I have with me today some data from Sheriff Barnes, Orange County Sheriff, very good friend. He's been here to testify numerous times. For 2025, he referred about 300 individuals for your office to pick up. 250 were picked up, 50 were never picked up. We had a long conversation saying, what is going on? If these are the worst of the worst, you've called ICE to pick them up and you didn't pick them up. Can you explain to us why you didn't pick up all these individuals that were referred to your office to pick up?
Yes, sir. That's the key part of that is the referral. We make sure that those individuals are eligible to be placed in detention and for movability. So
you never even looked at those individuals.
Gentleman's time.
I would like to talk to you about this issue later on, Mr. Lyons.
And I hope that that can be proven wrong. And the other side of the aisle wants to enforce the laws that are on the books. Commissioner Scott, how many administrations have you worked for in your career?
Since the Clinton administration?
So multiple Republicans, multiple Democrats.
Correct.
Is it a crime to enter this country illegally and to skip a notice to appear, to skip a court-ordered appearance, and to not comply with the laws that are on the books?
Yes, sir.
Has that changed since you started working for President Clinton?
No.
So I can't imagine establishing the fact that it is a crime to skip a notice to appear. We had 10 to 12 million people who entered this country illegally in the Biden administration. As a conservative estimate, there are sanctuary cities all throughout the United States who have said, we will not comply with federal laws. That's why we're here today. I can't imagine being a DHS officer, an ICE officer, and being threatened with violence, having death threats, being doxxed, having your family identified, putting that on the internet, and violently telling you that they are going to kill you because you are enforcing the laws that are on this book that were passed by both sides of the aisle in this body. Director Lyons, how many of your agents are being doxxed, threatened, or harassed?
We've had over 8,000% increase on death threats.
You know, I'm in the middle of working a bipartisan domestic terrorism working group with another member on this committee. There is a group called Defend 612 that has come out with tactics, techniques, and procedures in Minneapolis to do things like encourage protesters to impede law enforcement, to push civilians towards legally and physically risky confrontations, to help mobilize a counter-protest, to coordinate strategies and trainings to aid illegal immigrants to avoid detention. Are you familiar with groups like this, Defend 612?
Yes, sir. We have multiple groups around that in all 50 states.
There's an article written by Christina Buttons, and I'd like unanimous consent to enter this into the record called Inside Minneapolis's ICE Watch Network. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter.
Without objection.
This article talks about these tactics, techniques, and procedures that put your law enforcement agents and your agents at risk. What is different about Minneapolis? What kind of coordination have you received from the local police department that we don't see any of this in Texas? We've not seen, and there have been many ICE operations that have happened in Texas, but what's different from what you've seen in Minneapolis?
Unfortunately, sir, in the beginning of the Minneapolis operation, we didn't see any cooperation at the state or the local level, whether it be from the Minneapolis Police Department or the Minnesota State Police, which led to ICE officers and agents, as well as our other federal partners, pretty much having to defend themselves from whatever impediment, riots, or protests.
Were they told by local elected officials not to cooperate?
Yes, sir.
Is that because they're a sanctuary city?
I'm assuming that's
in
what it is,
part-
sir, but I can't speak to the mind of those elected officials, but they were ordered not to stand down.
How did it make you feel as somebody who carries out the laws that this body has passed when you hear the mayor of Minneapolis say F ICE?
Oh, sir, I mean, from a morale standpoint, it hurts us to the fact that for decades, and I've worked since President Bush, ICE has always been in Minneapolis. We've always been in every major city and state. So it wasn't like it was a brand new thing. We've always been doing immigration enforcement. So that's demoralizing.
Commissioner Scott, are you separating families?
No.
Tell me about when you served President Obama. Has anything changed in the policy of deportation? And how many people did President Obama deport?
I don't have that number in front of me. Policies and how things are enforced do change. The laws have not changed. I believe what you're referring to is literally when someone is arrested, whether it's on immigration or whether it's a normal criminal offense, and they have children, we don't necessarily prosecute the children. But when someone's deported, if they want to take their children with them, they have that right. We do not separate them.
I hope that the other side of the aisle will read this article on Defend 612 and look at the tactics, techniques, and procedures. And if this is domestic terrorism, where we have a group that's on signal that is calling out agents and doing things to interrupt, intercede, and prevent law enforcement from carrying out the laws that this body passed, that you'll have the courage to call it domestic terrorism if it is that way. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Panadar, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to our witnesses. Commissioner Scott, did the ICU nurse, Alex Preddy, deserve to die?
I cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Do you believe that he deserved to die? Should he be killed by your agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir, before it's concluded and all the facts are available.
Do you agree with CBP Commander Bovino's statement that Alex Preddy was planning to massacre law enforcement agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Director Lyons, did Renee Good deserve to die?
Sir, I can't comment on ongoing investigations.
Director Lyons, do you agree with Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance's characterization of Renee Good as a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I can't speak to their comments as that they are their own, but as an ongoing investigation, I can't speak to that.
Director Lyons, what did your agents mean when he said, "You raise your voice, I erase your voice"? In the video just that we have seen, all of us have seen.
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. I can't comment on what that officer has said.
Does that statement, if I show you the video of that, does that statement reflect the value of your agency? And does ICE respect and adhere to the First Amendment?
Yes, sir, ICE does respect and refer to the First Amendment, but that doesn't respect, your statement that you said doesn't represent the values of the men and women of ICE.
Commissioner Scott, does CBP respect and adhere to the First and Second Amendment?
Yes, we do.
Don't you agree that Alex Preddy had every right to exercise his First and Second Amendment freedoms before being shot in the streets by one of your agents?
I believe every person in the United States has a right to their constitutional rights.
Look, I have heard and seen enough. I'm just sick and tired of your agents running around in our cities, in our streets, causing illegal activities. ICE and CBP thugs are roaming our streets, attacking our communities, using our children as bait, referring to people as bodies and numbers, targeting people for their accents, and the color of their skin and killing American citizens, all while showing zero remorse for their actions. Director Lyons and Commissioner Scott, do you think President Trump will pardon you and your boss, Kristi Noem, before he leaves office, just like he has for insurrectionists and his political allies? Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Because, go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get been pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the illegal actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished. I also co-sponsored a bill to impeach Secretary Kristi Noem. And I believe Kristi Noem must be impeached. And this Congress must do everything in its power to carry out oversight actions against these rogues departments, including if
Gentleman's time has expired. A witness has requested a break. Committee will recess for 5 minutes. Members of the audience will remain seated.